Welcome back. Now, some of newspapers are here this morning. Daily Guide has the front page story, Veep attacks Bawumia. It comes with the photographs of the two gentlemen. We'll take a look at that story later on. The Ghanaian Times says education colleges rocked by a strike. Also on the Ghanaian Times front page, accountants charged to uphold ethics to fight corruption. 3 fire personnel crashed to death. That story, a lot of controversies with that story. The fire service personnel coming to say that it's indeed not true. We'll try and get some more information on that. But that is what the Ghanaian Times is reporting this morning. The Daily Graphic says Muslims observe Eid al-Adha today. The photograph of Chief Imam Sheikh Osmanu Husharbutu there. Help clean country of rot. Chief Justice, Institute of Chartered Accountant, President, charge accountants. And the Daily Graphic also carries the story on the teachers of colleges of education threatened to go on strike. Actually, the strike has started. Now, on 3news.com, on TV3 yesterday, you might have seen the story 3 days ago, what happened the constituency when supporters of the two main parties clashed there in a debate organized by 3FM. We'll take a look at that in the build-up to December 7. I'll tell you who my guests are this morning. To my right is the Deputy Minister of Communications, Felix Kwachiofosu. Good morning. Good morning. And I hope you are doing good. Yes, your holiday has started well. Yes, we are taking 1.5 hours of your holiday this morning.
Oh, not a problem. Okay. We are here to serve the nation, so right. Any opportunity to interact is great. Right. Let me wish our Muslim comrades happy Eid. And I do hope that the celebrations are moderate so that we avoid any excesses. Yes.
Great. We're grateful for your time this morning. To my left is the Member of Parliament for Akuapem South constituency. Good morning too.
Good morning.
And again, 1.5 hours of your holiday has been taken away by TV3.
It's worth it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And happy Adha to our Muslim family. I noticed that you said comrades. How they will be comrades, I don't know.
They are comrades, okay. All right. We're grateful for your time this morning. Let's start this morning's conversation. We'll quickly watch what happened in the Diodio constituency. We'll talk about it first, and particularly when all efforts are being made to ensure we have a free, violent-free elections. What happened there during the 3FM's debate, not worthy of a country that had started this journey way back some 20 years ago. Let's watch it. We'll come back and jump into the conversation.
The 3FM's parliamentary debate started on a rather calm note when some party executives were given the opportunity to debate. Soon, the parliamentary aspirants for the NDC and NPP were ushered in with chanting songs. Immediately, the debate set off in full flight. The tension between followers of the NDC parliamentary candidate Neelante Vanderpoy and NPP parliamentary aspirant Neelante Bannerman began to rise. Security assigned to the debate could not calm the tension between the supporters of the NDC and the NPP. As the tension progressed, the NDC and NPP supporters began to spite one another with chanting songs and insults. Supporters began attacking one another on the platform of the debate to end the session abruptly.
very good news there from Odododio constituency in the Greater Accra region. And let's start our conversation with this. Felix, let me start with you. You're Deputy Minister of Communications. Now, ahead of December 7, how well can we halt this kind of, if I should put it, behavior?
Well, let me begin by condemning the spectacle in no uncertain terms. I mean, it is an extremely alarming video to watch. It was completely unnecessary, completely uncalled for, and most regrettable that what was built to be a debate, a platform created for interaction between candidates on one hand and constituents on the other, in order to elicit the necessary discussions and views relating to the development of that constituency, vis-a-vis how each candidate can best address those problems, should degenerate into this form of primitive violence. I am not interested in justifications or who started what. It is simply not tolerable, and all of us must speak out strongly against it. What this represents is, for me, a sad rollback for all the progress that we've made over the years. We've held 6 elections. This is the 7th one. And it's been 22 or 24 long years since then. We've made incremental progress. We have earned the praise of many nations. We are seen as an oasis of peace in a troubled zone in Africa. We have earned the respect of the international community. And everywhere you go as a Ghanaian citizen, you can hold your head up high because of some of the gains we've made in our democratic practice. Therefore, for this incident to happen at this time, it's a major setback, which requires immediate action to stamp out. You see, this underscores the point that some of us have been making, that it does not pay to engage in incendiary rhetoric and charge up supporters and get them to think that the other side basically are made up of devils with horns and tails who are out there to get them. Otherwise, why should an exercise like this, even if the debate gets heated, end up in this sort of exchange? Is a most condemnable situation. I do hope that the security agencies are on top of this one. They will look into it. If they are able to find that it was instigated by somebody or something happened to trigger it, perhaps they should hold persons like that accountable, punish them sternly to serve as a deterrent to others. But I would like to appeal to all of us, especially the supporters of political parties. Do not risk your life unnecessarily in pursuit of the interest of any candidate or the other. And that is how President Mahama has been clear that he is not going to countenance any form of violence at all on the part of his supporters in these elections, and that he is not going to act in ways that incite it, because a single drop of blood is not needed for any particular candidate to emerge victorious. And all of us must take a very serious view of this and seek to refrain from such conduct. I don't see how this violent outbreak has inured to the benefit of any of the candidates or parties in this election. I don't see how it has enhanced the chances of any of the candidates in this particular election. And those involved should clearly bow down their heads in shame. It is not an acceptable situation, and we should do far better than this, given all the gains that we've made. Also, what it means is that the security agencies perhaps have to do more and map up the necessary strategies to forestall some of these events. Only last week, there was a report about some flashpoints. The truth is that these flashpoints have existed, but by and large, we have managed to have elections that have been relatively peaceful. In 2012, the elections passed off without any noticeable incidents. I had hoped that going into 2016, we would avoid some of these things. We should leave them behind. It has no place in modern democratic practice. And I'm extremely sad this morning watching this spectacle. I heard of it over the weekend, but I hadn't seen the images. I didn't know that it was this serious. And it pains me greatly that this should happen. But I hope that it becomes the very last such incident that we record in this electioneering campaign. And all of us political leaders have a responsibility to caution our supporters against this sort of behavior. And our own actions and utterances or inactions should not become the basis for such deplorable violence. That is what I would say. I'm
grateful. Honorable Bawumia, Felix refers to the last week's report from the EC about 81 constituencies as flashpoint constituencies that must be keenly watched by security agencies. Perhaps this is a signal that indeed we need to be careful about these.
Well, I wish in the first place you make this footage available to the security agencies for them to study it very well and probably invite some persons as part of their investigations. We should also admit that for such events, we will have to anticipate some of these things. Indeed, for most political events, we only have one side carrying out the event. For instance, if it's a rally, it's a one-party rally. If it's keep faith, whatever, it's a one-party thing. But where you are bringing parties together, then one, should anticipate that anything can go wrong. Two, you should know that a lot of people don't even understand issues, and their tolerance level is quite low. Ideally, you would wish that the NCC would be able to educate us on some of these things, and we organize debates that people see that that's a fair thing. Indeed, we should appreciate that. For instance, we have the Joy ballot box or what. I've been watching it. They went to the Brahafo region, they were in the Western region, and you could see that the debate was quite fairly organized. So probably this will come as a surprise, the way it's gone. But we should also look at maybe the terrain and the kind of heated situation, and then also provide the appropriate security. But as I said from the beginning, the security agencies should clamp down on those who behave this way. It's just like being going for a football match and people thinking that the referee has not been fair or their team is not playing well, so they should take the law into their own hands. If we allow these things to continue, they will degenerate, and then come election day, somebody just goes and carries the ballot box away or starts creating confusion so that people will just run away. The police should not just say that we have flashpoints. Flashpoints, they don't happen only on election day. Before elections, if anybody wants to take the law into his own hands, the police should start dealing with them. If people don't want to vote on election day, the police should help them not to vote on election day. Because if you indulge in violence in the name of politics, it doesn't absolve you from the criminal acts that you've carried out for the prosecution to also do its duty. So as much as possible, the police, the security should come in, warn persons that they should not think that violence related to elections cannot be prosecuted, or those indulging in such violence will not be arrested and prosecuted. I think that the education should still go on. I think that such programs are useful because the people are then asked to come and tell the whole world what they'll be able to do or what they're capable of doing, and then why people should entrust them with power for one whole term. But it doesn't also mean that when people are provoked, they should take the law into their own hands. And I can imagine such a situation. It's very easy for one person to just shout an insult, another replies, and before you are aware, we are engaged in fisticuffs. And this is not good for us. It's a very bad image. But there are few people who can give us very bad image if we don't check them. After all, it's not everybody who is supposed to vote on election day. If you choose not to vote on election day by indulging in violence, then I should take his course. I think that this is the only way that we can address some of these things. Apart from the fact that we should educate people and let them know the implications of what they do, people should also be disciplined enough. And if
to be engaged in this. But what about the role of political party leadership? Felix is suggesting that political party leadership should not.
Well, it's just like saying that the irony of it is that a team goes to play a match, and then a few supporters will misbehave, and then they will ban the stadium for how many matches, and the team suffers. At the end of the day, the team is suffering, but the individual who carried the thing out, if it is not apprehended, There's just a few people trying to bring the reputation of a whole group into dispute. You may educate your followers, but you don't know who comes in and thinks that on that day he thinks that he's provoked to take the law into his own hands. It's good for us to all hammer on this, educate our followers. But I'm saying that there are some, even I have experienced a situation where even when it's only party people, some misbehave and they wish that the whole program is even aborted. When it's even only party people, when only party members have met, even in such exchanges, you find people who think that they should have their way or they should abuse before they make their point. And such things, they degenerate into this kind of thing. So for opposing parties, it could be worse. But I'm saying that we can do the education all right, but there should also be deterrence. People should know that they cannot take the law into their own hands, but no matter the event. So whether sports, politics, whatever, no matter the event, people should not take the law into their own hands.
When your opponent is painted as a devil, then the supporters pick the signal and start misbehaving.
Well, even though when we come to...
And this painting is done by the leadership.
Well, even though I would never endorse this kind of language and situation, it does not also give anybody the license to take the law into his own hands. I may say the worst things about my opponent because I want to come to power. These people cannot run the system well, so give the power to us. Some may go overboard and make comments which are not necessary or which are not helpful. But it doesn't mean that I should incite you to the point that you break the law. If you break the law, you break the law alone. You don't break the law with me. If I stand on a platform and make all the noise I can make, it is never good to incite the public. I don't believe in politicians who incite. I get the impression that if you incite people, that means probably you are empty. That's my attitude. But at the same time, as he said, why would you want to fight and even die for an individual? I mean, if I'm pleading with the public to serve the public, why should my followers think that either I serve the public or I die, to the extent that they are ready to fight and maim and kill? It means that they don't even appreciate and understand this whole business of politics. And it shows that there's a lot of work we need to do if indeed we have to move forward. But I'm saying that there should be banner headlines. 5 are arrested for so and so, and then people will know that when they attend political party events or political events, they cannot take the law into their own hands. That's the biggest deterrent that we can have. Right. As I said, it's everywhere. If you go to a sporting event, people think that they've come for a sporting event, they've gone to drink, and they think they can misbehave and then turn everything upside down. If you don't take any action, they go home and go and brag about it.
And we'll continue.
Yes. And I slapped 5 people and I've come home. Next time I will kill 3 people. And it goes on. But they should know that the consequences of such actions are very grave. You don't just attend any public event and take the law into your own hands. Especially in your case, you'll be very embarrassed because you have set up this whole thing.
Yeah. And
you thought you were trying to bring out the best from the candidates, and then Ghana will move forward. I look at a few people thinking that they are better than anybody and then taking the law into their own hands. The police may have been overwhelmed, all right, but there's a footage. Once there's a footage, they should go for those who took the law into their own hands.
All right.
No matter, the only challenge sometimes is when they think it's politics and people are in political colors, they are a bit soft on them.
The police you're referring to?
Yes, and people act with impunity when they know that they can walk in and out of police cells any day simply by invoking the party colors. It doesn't help anybody. If we were to continue with violence, a lot of people will stay out of politics. I'm not interested in violence in any way. I walk around alone, I drive alone, I move into events alone. But if I think that this is the kind of threat of my life, either I protect myself or I walk out.
I'm grateful. Right. Okay. Let's leave it there and move on to talk about this story which broke out last weekend, over the weekend. The lecture by Dr. Bawumia, the Vice President, has responded to the lecture The Daily Guide puts the story here and says that the Vice President has responded or pronouncement. He said, Mr. Mitasa said Dr. Bawumia's pronouncement about the interest payment exceeding capital expenditure was very wrong and needs to be corrected. He was speaking at one of the Greater Accra Regional Zonal Campaign launch of the party. Now, quote for a few of the things he said. He said interest payments has exceeded capital expenditure, and Mr. and Mr. Arthur is suggesting that even everybody knows that if you borrow money, you pay for a road, and it is going to take 10 years to pay that loan. Every year, you have to take 1/10 of the money to pay back to the person you borrowed the money from. Now, if you borrow to build a road, you have to pay back that money, and that's one of the responses. Now, he said that he will come out to make a full response to the lecture held by Dr. Bawumia. And so quickly, we'll take a look at that. Felix, let me once again start with you there. Now, after the lecture, of course, apart from the Vice President, Mr. Arthur, other civil society groups have also waded into reaction to some of the things Dr. Bawumia said. But generally, what is the party's position on some of the issues that he raised?
Well, the first point is that every Ghanaian reserves the right to comment on national issues. So it was not surprising that in the aftermath of Dr. Bawumia's lecture, several people spoke about it and made their opinions heard. Several members of government and members of the NDC, as well as other civil society organizations, have all aired their views. I mean, the fact remains that Dr. Bawumia's analysis was most misleading. Indeed, if you take a look at what he said and the way he said it, even the platform he used, it was obvious that this was a partisan event where he clearly distorted and manipulated figures in order to justify a certain predetermined conclusion, which in his view was going to be favorable to his party. So when people say it is a lecture, I tend to disagree. I believe that it was a party event where he was speaking. And the context within which people speak is most important. He was speaking at a partisan event as a politician, seeking to curry favor with the electorate and give an advantage to his party. That essentially is what happened. That must be distinguished from a purely academic lecture, which is non-partisan, where an objective analysis is done of economic data with a view to highlighting a specific difficulty and providing solutions or making recommendations for their redress or highlighting a particular problem. The two situations are not the same. Dr. Bawumia did the former. The latter is normally done by persons who are disinterested in the politics but are only concerned about academic pursuits. Now, if you look at the base upon which I make this statement, it is not far-fetched. Essentially, all that he did, if you sum it up, was trying to show that the NPP are better managers of the economy. That essentially is what he attempted to do. The indices that he picked, however, do not support that conclusion. And incidentally, you know, economic analysis is done on the basis of measurable indices. That before you discuss the economy, there are certain things that you need to look at. Now, the computation of those things are objective. So it does not allow for any emotion or opinion. Any analysis of it has to be cold. You just look at the facts and speak. It is not about what you think or do not think. It's about the objective facts. There's no room for emotion or opinion. So on that basis, we are able then to look at the facts as they are and then pronounce on them, whether or not one party has done better than the other. The fact is that development is an incremental process. So we all play our parts as parties who come into government and contribute towards national development. However, if you want to assess one party's performance against the other, you have to be fair and candid in the analysis of the data. For instance, Dr. Bawumia dwelt a lot on economic growth. And any time that he does that, and many others in his party do this, he tends to isolate the very last GDP growth recorded under the MPP, that is 2008. It was 8.4%, but it was subsequently revised to 9.1%. and compares it to the current GDP rate of 3.9%, and then says that because of that, the NPP did better. But you see, you don't isolate figures that way for purpose of analysis. What you do is you look at a trend. And indeed, most of the indices that are used are actually averages. You look at the trend over the period and then average it out. So you look at an 8-year period against an 8-year period. If you do that, you will find that growth rates averagely between 2001 and 2008
when the MPP
was 5.7%.
That's if you strike the average of 8 years, right?
The reason why I say that is that if you look at their growth rates, you find that they were pretty small. 4, 5, 5, 6. Then there was a spike, 9.1% in their final year. It shows you that we are not growing at very high rates under the MPP, except the last year. Even then, if you isolate that, all the other indices pointed south. Inflation went haywire, interest rates were still high, we were still indebted, our external reserves had dwindled, the currency had depreciated. The only thing that was standing was that isolated 9.1 growth rate. Now, if you come to the NDC period, over the 8-year period that the NDC has been around, average growth rate has been 7.3%, because we've had very, very high growth rates. We've grown at 8%, we've grown at 7%, we've grown at 15%.
That's on 2011?
That's 2011.
Okay, right.
And before 2011, we grew at 8%. In 2012, we grew at 8.8%. And then there have been 4%, 5% here and there. So when you average it, you find out that on the average, we have grown higher than we did under the MPP. Look at inflation, for instance. If you take out the first 3 or 4 months of 2009, because the inflationary pressures, now when the MPP left power, inflation was 18.1%. The factors that were accounting for it still persisted when we came to power in 2009. So the first 4 to 5 months, it was still, in fact, it went to 20.1%, 2% at some point. But it started to dip, such that by 2010, 2011, 2012, we had attained single-digit inflation over a long period. For 31 months continuous, we had single-digit inflation. Even when we left the single-digit band, if you take out the first 3 months of this year or so, inflation has been lower than we inherited. Current inflation is 16.4%. It is lower than what we inherited. If you average it out, you find that inflation has been very, very low compared to the MPP period. Indeed, the MPP achieved single-digit inflation only once, for 1 month, in their 8-year period. Never mind the fact that they were the ones, including Dr. Bawumia, who put in place what they call the inflation targeting regime, which was aimed at keeping inflation down. But they only managed to achieve single-digit inflation once. We achieved it for 31 continuous months. If you look at our external reserves, that is what gives you import cover. When the MP left power, we had just 3 weeks of import cover. Currently, we have 3.3 months of import cover. At a point, we had $5.9 billion in our external reserves, representing the highest ever. Look at the exchange rate. If you look at the exchange rate, on an annual basis, the rate of depreciation has not been different from what happened after the launch of the Ghana cedi. The Ghana cedi was launched on 1st July 2007. By December 2008, the cedi had lost 31% of its value. It had moved from 0.92 Ghana cedis or 92 pesos to 1 cedi 20 pesos. 31% of its value had been lost. The first half of this year, the cedi has lost 0.02% of its value against its major trading currencies. It is true that we've had difficulties with the budget deficit. In 2012, we recorded a budget deficit of 11.8%, I believe. But we've brought it down consistently. Last year, we projected that our deficit would be 7%, but we managed to achieve 6.3% deficit. This year, to go to 5%, one of the lowest in decades. So you need, but honorable, it's true. We achieved 6.3 when we projected 7%. So if you do this analysis, it is not accurate. The facts don't support Dr. Bawumia's claims that they have been better managers of the economy. You see, there's a difference between being loud and constantly repeating something and actually saying what is true. But I've given you the objective figures, and you can check it out. Again, if you look at the debt situation, that is where perhaps Dr. Bawumia does the most injustice to the facts. He is able to stand on a platform and claim that in the last 8 years, the NDC government has borrowed $37 billion. That is
39 or 7?
$39 billion.
39, right. 39.
That is patently untrue. Essentially, he's saying that we have borrowed more in the last 7 years than we have borrowed in the last 59 years. It simply doesn't make sense, with the greatest respect to him. Our current national debt, starting from independence, is $26 billion. How is it possible for us to have borrowed in an 8-year period $39 billion? What essentially he is saying is that we've paid off $13 billion, and we have not done that. We have not paid off $13 billion. Look, I have a spreadsheet here that details our debt situation since the year 2000 up until ending of 2015. When the MP came to power, our debt was around, let's say, $7.15 billion. In 2006, they benefited, after the AP completion point, they benefited from about $4 billion in debt relief. But before they left for it had gone back to $8.1 billion. What Dr. Bawumia does is that he freezes the MPP debt in time. He behaves as if exchange rate movements don't affect the part of the debt that was contributed by the MPP. So what he does is that he multiplies this $8.1 billion by the end of year exchange rates and achieves $9.5 billion. And he freezes his debt. He behaves as if the 8.1 doesn't still add up to our debt, and therefore any movement in the exchange rate affects it. Now, this is how you calculate debt. We borrow in multiple currencies. They have what they call special drawing rights, which is a special currency. We have dollars, euros, and other foreign currencies. And then we borrow domestically, which often is in cedis. Now, when you want to compute your debt, what you simply do is that you convert it into a single currency for purpose of reporting and uniformity.
Right.
So all the foreign exchange, you convert it to the dollar. We use the dollar. Then, if you want to report your total debt in dollars, you convert the local component at the existing exchange rate, add it to what you have, and get your national debt. If you want to do it in Ghana cedi terms, you do the reverse. Simply multiply your foreign component by the existing exchange rate. If you check the various Bank of Ghana reports, at the time that Dr. Bawumia was deputy governor, if you check all the budget statements that the MPP issued, including the last one done in 2007 by the late Honorable Kojo Banredu, that is how they treated debt. However, when you point out this obvious untruth to Dr. Bawumia, he tells you that he's looking at the value of the amount you've borrowed, or the dollar equivalent at the time you borrowed. Honestly, he's saying that, for instance, we borrowed $250 million to do the Rate Hospital. This was a loan that we got sometime in 2013, I believe. In 2013, we borrowed $250 million. That is the value of the money we borrowed. We've executed a project over a 3-year period worth $250 million. When you are going to pay that money, you will need $250 million plus the agreed interest. So, if you are going to mobilize resources locally, you simply change your cedi at the prevailing exchange rate to get your $250 million plus the interest and go and pay. So, exchange rate movements actually affect the local equivalent of the debt. It does not reduce
the debt itself.
It does not reduce the debt in terms of its expression in foreign currency. But this is what Dr. Bawumia deliberately misleads the public on, so that if you are not aware, you don't have the facts, you will believe that we've borrowed. How is it possible? I'm asking you, Bright. How is it possible that in all our 59 years of statehood, today, if by some stroke of fortune we were to come by some large amount of money and we're going to pay our debt, we will pay $26 billion. That's how much we owe everybody. We will pay. How is it possible for us to owe $26 billion since independence and be told that we have borrowed $39 billion in 8 years? It is simply not, it doesn't add up. So it's important that, yes, we discuss the economy. If there are difficulties, by all means, they should be highlighted. We have been upfront. We admitted that the deficit was a problem, and we worked to improve upon it. But let us not deliberately distort facts in order to draw misleading conclusions for partisan advantage.
All right. Let me put that question to Honorable Bawumia here. But first, Felix is suggesting that the platform itself is a partisan one, not a lecture. Again, he talks about the statistics, suggesting Dr. Bawumia picks only 1 year to make his argument. Meanwhile, when you want to do with these things, you need to stretch it over a number of years.
Well, thank you again. I heard part of the Vice President's speech, and I thought, coming from him, the tone was quite high and very unfortunate. Because what I heard was, he said he heard somebody, he couldn't mention Dr. Bawumia's name, he heard somebody making noise. And I thought, But with all due respect, you're a vice president of a country. If the running mate of the largest opposition party has delivered a lecture, even if it's partisan lecture, and you want to make reference to it, you don't say you heard somebody making noise. These are some of the things that we do and say which give politics a very bad name. And for him, he's not known to be that. If he's found his voice after all these years, I believe that the best way is to be a bit decorous, sensitive. Let the people know that we are not enemies. If you come to Parliament, we sit there as colleagues. We walk from one side to the other to go and sit there and chat. But we disagree on a lot of issues. So if you're a leader and on a platform, you create the impression that the other side is scam, you create a problem for everybody. That is just by the way. Number two, I can say that for 99.9% of what Dr. Bawumia has been saying all these years, they've come to pass. He's even been given a nickname prophet. Ghana will go to IMF, say Tofiakwa. Ghana will never go to IMF. Then we land there. When we landed, it was for bailouts. You understand? If you take this measure, we will be in trouble. Our business will collapse. The city will be weak. They said it will never happen. Bank of Ghana decided that nobody should take more than $10,000 from a bank. He predicted what will happen to us. At every lecture, he's able to predict what will happen to us. And comes to pass. Is it not true that we have a weak city? Very weak city? Is it not true that there's high inflation? Is it not true that there's high interest rates? Is it not true that we spend all our money paying for interest on money that we've borrowed? Have we borrowed hugely? Don't we have a huge debt? Is there no high unemployment? All these are critical issues. Don't we have labor unrest? Is poverty not growing? These are things that people want to hear. As for the GDP that we, the intellectuals and academics, we can engage in all the facts and figures you can talk about. You can even have various models. If you do it this way, this is what will happen. But is it not ironic that if you run a country and don't run it very well, and your CD depreciates so much, you can then say that if I convert, it is so much, but if I don't convert, it is so little. You understand? And at the end of the day, I expect the NDC to be more modest and charitable to us. Because the facts are not Dr. Bawumia's facts and figures. They are NDC facts and figures.
They claim he distorts
He didn't pick it from anywhere. Sometimes I even think that he has even picked all the facts and figures. Look, this is what I always refer to. This document. Let me give you just the cover. This is Republic of Ghana going for sovereign bond. And this is the document that he produced, partially guaranteed by IDA. This was when we were going for the Euro bond, 1 billion Euro bond at 10.75%, due to be amortized in 2030. This is what the document they sent to those who wanted to give us money, dated October 2015, quite recent. And in the document, all that Dr. Bawumia said, they've listed them. You can, for me not to sound partial, you can go through them and read them.
Including
look, gross public debt, percentage of GDP. From 2010, which was 37.8, 2011, 39.4, 2012, 47.9, 2013, 55.9, 2014, 70.2, as at June 2015, 71.3%. Look, go to exchange rate. The figures are there. These are not Dr. Bawumia's figures. This is the document the government itself produced and sent it abroad that they wanted 1 billion from investors or people who could give us money. This document has not changed a bit. And if you go into it, the situation is even worse. What they call the risk factors. That if you are coming to invest in Ghana, this is what you should be aware of. It's a requirement before you go on the international market. And they were candid enough in this. But when it comes to just platform talk and media engagement, they create the impression that everything is rosy in this country and that those who are complaining are just complaining because they want power. But you have given me these figures and I have to interrogate them.
But is it not the use of the figures that Felix is talking about? Because, for instance,
listen, I can give a 3-hour lecture.
No, don't block your microphone.
Sorry, I can give a 3-hour lecture, even though I'm not an economist. I can give a 3-hour lecture based on only these figures.
Right.
Based on only these figures, without changing anything. Because you have given me these figures. I go to the budget, then I look at the budget and see what you've put there. Then I look at, let's say if I pick agric, I want to know why you have invested only 1% in agric in recent times. I want to know why, when it comes to oil money, you put $270 million for capacity building and put only $30 million for agric. And even the $30 million, you give them only $27 million out of it. Why is agric collapsing? By your own figures, agric is very low. You revise your figures from 0.4% to about 3.2%, but it's still not good enough. So you can spend the whole day complaining and talking about Bawumia this, Bawumia that, Bawumia this. It doesn't have to take Dr. Bawumia to say these things.
If the public debt, for instance, as of June 2015 is 71.3, as this document is claiming, does it simply suggest that because of that, the ruling government today is a worse manager of the economy than perhaps some other one?
The thing is that if you have more money, it's just like in any venture. If you're running a shop, if I have given my shop to you for you to run, and you always come, I give you more money for you to go and buy goods to come and put in the shop, and then you increase your prices. I expect better returns than what I'm seeing. You may give stories, but there are situations where there's a typical example. I had a friend who was running a shop. His shop was always full. So the storekeeper was saying that people were not buying. But the shopkeeper was doing very well. Apparently, when people come, he will sell the items to them, quickly go and buy and come and fill the place, and he will keep the profit. And he will tell you the shop is, nobody is buying, but he was doing well. So, if so much has been given to you, of course, we expect better than what we are seeing. And the records are there. Look at Public Procurement Act, the report. The kind of sole sourcing that we do, that in a year, out of 400 or so applications, 235 are sole sourcing. Obviously, how are you going to get the best value for money? If indeed you are constrained for you to go and buy an item without going on competitive bidding, it's understood. But if it becomes the norm, when in 2009, first State of the Nation address, Professor Mills had complained about this kind of situation, and you come and do worse, you don't want us to talk about it. Why are you angels?
Let me ask you this.
Meanwhile, you have a record. Before 2000, you had a record. The NDC, when you promised so much and the figures showed differently from what you promised the whole world. Interest rate. You said, oh, I'll bring interest rate to 18 point something. It shot up to 40 point something. The currency, it depreciated so much that the cedi was worthless. Before 2000. And then we came to stabilize it. You've come back, and now you're talking about averages. That's why he said that. That's why he said that Professor Mills.
That's why I was going.
He said that Professor Mills did better than John Mahama, whether you like it or not. Professor Mills did better than John Mahama, whether you like it or not. And the figures show, like what I've even shown you here. So 2010, 2011, 2012, half of 2012, Professor Mills' time. The figures are far better than.
So for you, it is good to use the figures, the year the NPP exit, and not strike the average.
You can. Okay. You can strike the average. So, of course, when we inherited a bankrupt economy where we had to go to EPIC, we can still use those figures. Let's go for the budgets. Nobody is afraid of comparing. Let's go for the budget.
Okay, so if the NDC says that if you ended off 9.1 and we ended up 2016 is 3.9, and you strike the average and they say that you're not better managers.
So we should stretch it to 16 years of NDC. Let's take away the military government. Oh, okay. 16 years of NDC. And tell you that in the election year 2000, what were the figures? When the last quarter of the year, they took so much from Bank of Ghana that the economy collapsed. Just the same as 2012. So you should stretch it. If you want averages, let's go averages. And then pick all the years that they have run Ghana and compare it to the years that we ran Ghana. And look at the difference. That's why I'm saying that, as for book no lie. Dr. Bawumia has been very charitable. He's a gentleman. He's a gentleman. When he's he's talking to the crowd, he's warning them, then he tries to be a bit populist. But he's not a populist. Dr. Bawumia is not a populist. Imagine these same figures, if you had these same figures with Sir John. Imagine why we're happy in this country.
He said 8 banks might collapse.
It's true. We said it here.
But I thought that was a bit.
No, but we said it here. Bright, have you forgotten?
Well,
we said it here. I mean, SEPA report brought it, and then the banks themselves were complaining because government itself is not paying, and then every person going to borrow also doesn't pay. We said it here. We have said it on this platform that the banks were collapsing because of the economic situation. So what is new? What is new that Dr. Bawumia has said? He hasn't said anything new. Rather, they think that if they attack the messenger instead of the message, that they will be making headway.
Let me go back to the country. Come back to you.
Go to the constituency where I come from. Go there. The petty things that they ask for, you can't believe it. Petty things. The people have become so broke that the average person who has some reputation and dignity, if he had his own way, he would never ask a peso from anybody. Everybody is going begging. That is what you should address, not hitting Dr. Bawumia and thinking that you have solved your problems. The petty things.
Okay.
If school reopens, go and talk to the average head teacher. The average teacher tells you that PTA levy, because capitation is not coming, they've imposed levies on parents. And the levies, they range between 25 to 48 cedis. Parents cannot pay. They appeal to we the politicians to come in to help. These are the things that you should be looking at, not models.
Okay, all right.
Model A,
okay,
model
Felix,
B, model C.
Don't let us talk about the figures. He says.
I didn't say we should talk about figures.
Not you.
That is an interesting.
Show him to him whether he has seen this document.
That is an interesting proposition.
No, I'm sure Felix
have
has
seen this document.
I've read it over and over again. But the point is that, you see, those figures do not even support the claims that Dr. Bawumia is making.
How are you saying that?
If you say our debt to GDP ratio is 71%.
At the end of 2015 June.
Exactly.
Right.
It's completely undermines. In fact, it demolishes his claim that we borrowed $39 billion in the last 8 years. Because what he's saying is that we've borrowed more in the last 8 years than the size of our economy. If that were the case, our debt to GDP ratio would be above 100%, not 71%. It is 71% because our debt is smaller than our GDP. So the figures that Honorable Obiyamwa is using actually highlights and underscores the point that I'm making, that Dr. Bawumia's analysis of our debt was completely untrue. And it is in his own interest, perhaps in the interest of his party, to refrain from that kind of... You see, a few months ago, you recall that the MPP issued a statement signed by Nana Kumia, in which they said that out of $18 billion that we had borrowed in the last 8 years, we had spent only $150 million on industrialization. So within the same party, two positions are emerging about our debt. The Bank of Ghana has put our debt position beyond doubt. It is in their reports on an annual basis. Every budget statement touches on our national debt. So I'm surprised that Dr. Bawumia continues to do this. Again, this business about, oh, you've attacked Dr. Bawumia's personality. Who has attacked Dr. Bawumia's personality?
He suggests that the vice president comment.
Oh, but why? He
heard someone.
Somebody making noise.
Vice president don't speak. You know that verbal jousting is allowed. Dr. Bawumia himself.
No, if it's you,
Dr. Bawumia was.
Felix, he's now being groomed.
Dr. Bawumia
to be more refined.
Dr. Bawumia at the lecture.
But
was heaping
somebody
abuse
making
on the
noise.
president. He was calling the president incompetent. I'm not sure that is.
He mentioned his name.
But if somebody does not mention your name, I don't see how that can be an attack. When you say you stand on a platform and say that the president of this country is incompetent, that is a compliment. But so what is wrong with the vice president not mentioning Dr. Bawumia's name?
And saying he was making noise.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that. If incompetent is a compliment, making noise cannot be an insult, and it is not an attack, honestly. It is a criticism. You understand the point I'm making? But let's go back to the figures. You see, you cannot do this analysis without the figures. After Dr. Bawumia claimed to be analyzing the figures. So you must examine the figures that he put out and their accuracy. Why? Imani Ghana, they are not by any means friendly towards the NDC. But even they were compelled to come out and say that what Dr. Bawumia said cannot be true. This claim that we have been responsible for 66% of the debt in the last 4 years is simply untrue. Again, he says that the Mills government performed better than the John Mahama government. What he forgets is that the man in charge of the economy under the Mills government was President Mahama. He was the head of the economic management team. So unwittingly, he has lauded President Mahama's economic management credentials. The governor of the Bank of Ghana, at the time that President Mills was in power, is the now vice president, His Excellency Kwesi Beku-Yemi-Sata. The current finance minister was the deputy finance minister under Mills. So all the key players who Dr. Bawumia says put up such a sterling performance under the Mills administration are the ones in charge of our economy. There cannot be a more glowing endorsement than that. Sometimes when you do political propaganda, you forget that you will be shooting yourself in the foot. But let me address a few.
Is it also saying then that the one now heading the economic management team?
You see, that's why I told you that you analyze economies on the basis of trends. You don't do an isolated choosing and picking of figures.
Right.
And indeed, we are more than willing to go back into history. We can open up the NDC's tenure, all the periods that we've been in power, for analysis and compare to the MPP.
Yes.
And you find that in terms of developing this country, the MPP comes nowhere. They are no match. But Dr. Bawumia himself makes excuses in this. He claims that in their 8-year period, they got 20 billion cedis. And then that's a nominal calculation. Says that we have gotten 248 billion Ghana cedis. That is even incorrect. It's not true. But he is admitting that they got less, so did less. He even attempted at some point to compare expenditure on infrastructure. Again, I don't see how Dr. Bawumia and the MPP can survive any debate when it comes to infrastructure development. There's no basis. Why? They were in power for well over 8 years. Yes, 8 years. How many secondary schools, for instance, did they build from scratch? They said they were going to renovate a model school in each district. Each district. That was a promise.
We did model schools. 35.
Yes, no. But check the 2009 budget statement. They did 19. Check the 2009 budget statement.
Was in the ministry.
No,
35.
Right.
35 and 19.
Right, but your own ministry brought 19 as what you had done for the 2009 budget. In 2000, there was no budget statement because of the election year. That was the time that we were transitioning from February to November.
Right.
But the information came from the finance ministry. In any event, you are doing 39. You did 39 renovations. We are building 123 community day schools. Beyond that,
in 2016, before 2016?
Oh yeah. Well, by the end of this year, 17 will be complete. The rest will be completed by middle of next year.
Okay.
And under the secondary education improvement program, we are doing what they say were model schools. 50 of them. Some of them actually have been completed. I can give you a list of it. 50. So that even dwarfs what the MPP did. That is separate from the investments that Get Fund and GOG have made in provision of dining halls, dormitories, classroom blocks, laboratories, and what have you. Under the secondary education improvement program, we are upgrading 50 schools, and it is well advanced. In fact, it is going much faster than even the community day schools that we are building. As I speak to you, there are 30 of these community day schools that have either been completed or are weeks away from completion, and it is not in dispute. So I'm surprised about what they are talking about. Again, they speak about companies collapsing. It is true that when you have difficulties with interest rates and you have difficulties with electricity, it impinges adversely on industry. There is no dispute about that. Recently, we've heard reports of some layoffs and what have you. But when you pin the MPP down to tell you the companies they say are moving out of Ghana or have collapsed, they'll be unable to do so. Indeed, if you look at
also have
let me give you the information that we have. Between 2013 and 2015, as many as 69 companies were set up within the free zones enclave alone. 69.
You believe it?
Oh, but why should we not believe it? You don't provide any data at all. You just make blanket statements that companies are collapsing. I'm giving you specific figures. If I can give you a breakdown of the companies, name by name, the number of people they employ currently, 69 of them have been employed in the last, have set up in the last, They also speak about unemployment, high unemployment. Again, in the past, we used to have debate about unemployment in a vacuum because there was really no body of information.
Do we have figures
yes,
now?
In recent times, the Ghana Statistical Service have upped their game. In September 2015, they published what they call the Integrated Business Establishment Survey, which showed that in 2014 alone, 207,000 jobs were created in this country in 3 sectors: agric, industry, and services. The majority of them were in services for obvious reasons. Now, even more importantly, if you disagree, and they've done, there's a copy of it, and anybody watching can download a copy from the Ghana Statistical Service website and study.
But they don't have the figures on
they
unemployment?
They do.
They have.
No. You see, what is happening is that it is a survey that they've done. They are also doing an unemployment database that will give us specific, because when you speak to labor experts, there are some who even say that unemployment is around 5%. That's what the experts are saying. But of course, it is something that needs to be verified and computed properly. But they have gone out to check the number of jobs that are being created. And interestingly, they said that out of these 207,000, 88% of them were created in the private sector. The same private sector that Dr. Bawumia and the MPP claims has collapsed. Of course, we admit that there's a major difficulty with unemployment. No two ways about it. Well, I am a public commissioner. I'm sure as an MP, he comes across situations where young people, some of whom highly qualified, highly educated, highly talented, willing to put their skills and energies at the disposal of the nation and work, have not found jobs. I am inundated with applications and requests and what have you. So it's a problem that we recognize. But government has not sat aloof and done nothing. The fact also remains that this economy continues to throw out jobs, even as more needs to be done going forward to give more and more opportunities to our youth to find employment. So in a nutshell, I would say that it is important that, yes, we have a debate about the economy. It is important that we admit where there are difficulties. Indeed, President Mahama, if you go back to 2013, he was the first person to hint of difficulty. When he made that statement about the meat getting down to the bone, you recall, his first State of the Nation address after President Mills' demise, he made that statement. Subsequent to that, I recall that the EU delegation in Ghana paid a visit to him at the Flagstaff House. And he said that we have a serious problem with public finances, especially regarding the budget deficit, which we need to bring down. We had a problem with the receipt of grants and other revenue mobilization efforts. So we need to do more, and it was going to lead to inflation and interest rate rises and difficulties with the exchange rate. But we have fixed these problems by and large. Don't forget that the World Bank, IMF, they are all predicting that next year we are going back onto the high growth path. And I will be growing at 7, 8, and 9%.
You believe
these are, oh, but why should we know? You've come here to, no, but Dr. Bawumia touts IMF figures. Dr. Bawumia uses IMF figures out of no.
You are saying
let me make my point.
How are you going to be magician within months? We are in September. You're saying that come January or even a year now.
Let me make my point.
This economy will do what?
You let him wrap up. I'm coming to you in
yes, he will come to you in a jiffy. The point is this, that these are credible international organizations. They have the means to look into the future and project growth. And they have projected. It ties in with our own assessments that from next year we will go back to the path of growth. Because when you are bridging a deficit, it has an effect on your ability to grow also. So you do certain things, you cut down on expenditure and focus on the things that are essential and make adjustments as you go forward so that you bring the deficit down. But once you're able to do that and you begin to spend responsibly, you find that your growth begins to grow. Some of the problems that we've had, Doomsor for instance, has been brought under control by and large. And it will lead to further economic growth because more power will become available. So yes, let us discuss the economy, but let us be frank and honest. I don't see how the MPP thinks that it is in their interest to go on repeating what they know to be false, that we've borrowed $39 billion. Why it is not true? Even their own citation of the debt to GDP ratio gives them away. You cannot have a debt to GDP ratio of 71% and say that we've borrowed more than the size of our economy in the last 8 years when we have not made the corresponding repayments.
Okay. I'm grateful.
Obi
wrap up.
In the first place, it's good to only tell one side of the story, if that will suit you. For instance, it's claimed that, I can cite these 9 companies. Look, I've been in government before. Before being in government, I was a tax practitioner. I worked with Professor Mills in the IRS for almost 10 years as a taxman. It's easy for people to come to this country, go and register at Registrar General, and say that they want to do business, go and register at GIPC, go and register at free zones, and you count it as part of business that you have created. People come and register, and that is the end of the matter.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that the 69 could be there, but they might not be on the ground. That's what you're saying.
No, let me clarify. Let me clarify a little point.
Yeah, it is not. You clarify.
Yeah, I'm not talking about registered companies. Though they are, even in Ghanaian companies, there are thousands of them that register on a daily basis. I'm talking about companies that have actually established. And there's one called Wankan. They are at Ishiem in the Western region. They are a tile manufacturing company from China, and their factory is almost done. They are going to manufacture 40,000 square feet of tiles a day for export, largely for export, and the rest for local consumption. So these are companies that have actually established. They are not, what do you call it, companies that are just registered on paper. Yeah.
Just recently, there's a whole program, and it was reported in the Daily Graphic that we need 300,000 jobs a year for so many years before you can clear this whole unemployment thing. So if you come here and say that, oh, we've created, look, in the oil sector alone, with all the money that we've pumped in, just recently when the vice president went to inaugurate 10, he told us we're going to get 7,000 jobs. 7,000. Compare with agric, where in the agric sector, at your maximum, you can get as many as 250,000 jobs. And if you are investing 1% in agric, and if your agric is growing at such low figures, and you come and tell me that you've solved an unemployment problem, or you are on course and this is a document to show, that means you're just trying to paint a picture that will suit you. And I'm saying that the figures don't support what you're saying. Is it not true that your city is very weak? Is it not true? Is it not true that your inflation is very high?
Not this year.
Is it not true that your businesses have collapsed? Even, look, simple business, like the hotel industry, it's collapsed because of energy crisis. You cannot run out. Ask any hotelier. They will tell you the kind of money they are spending to even sustain that business. You don't have any idea. And it's simple. If I have a 100-room hotel, a 100-bedroom hotel, and then occupancy rate is low, but I still have to provide power, and my electricity has problems, I have to buy fuel to fuel the generator, I'll be spending more and I'll be getting less. If I want to survive, I have to throw out people. This is basic. And if you think that for almost 4 years of power crisis, it's not going to affect your economy, everything is rosy, or people should not complain about it, then maybe you're living your own world.
So if power is stabilizing, you don't see perhaps that there's some change in?
No, the average...
There's no recovery?
The average business person, industrialist, would want to know that if it's stabilizing, is it consistent? Or after 3 months, you go back to the same thing. Probably it's even because of lessons that now they are pumping every money into crude oil. And then once they buy the crude oil, things will stabilize. Come 2017, if they are still in power, they start the whole joke again. That is the reality. So even for a business, but if I'm planning, I have to be sure that this thing, is it sustainable? Or is it that it's just for a short period? Because if I think it's sustainable, I start recruiting more people. And then before I'm aware, my overheads are so much that I have to throw them out. What have I achieved?
That's the problem you're suggesting.
Yes, what have I achieved? So please, as for the average person on the streets, you meet him every day, say, I don't have a job. But everything is going up. When the president in 2013 State of the Nation address promised that the average household will have reduced utility for water and electricity, 2013 State of the Nation address. When he promised that the average person will have major access to health care. He said all these things in State of the Nation address in 2013. We've given him 4 years to prove it. Now, are we better off? If some people are better off, what is the percentage of those who are better off? The larger chunk. They are suffering and they should be able to talk about it. So as for Bawumia, you can hit him, Bawumia. It will not change the reality on the ground that people are suffering.
Okay. I'm grateful.
I thought we had people are suffering. It is what every opposition party says. No,
you didn't carry this out by going CJ demonstration.
But I'm sure you were part of the Kumi Proko SCB Proko series of demonstrations.
Okay. All right. Let's quickly touch on this one. Teachers of education colleges declare a strike today, and the story says that all teachers, not the 38 public colleges of education, say that because there's been delay in migrating them to be able to draw salaries as tutors from other tertiary institutions, they are from this morning declaring the strike action, even though they suggested there are certain things they will not do. For me, putting out the information that they might be performing some other duties. This issue, we're told that the Ministries of Finance and Employment and Labour Relations and then the Labour Commission have all been blamed for showing lack of commitment to migrate the tutors to their requisite placement on their tertiary dispensation according to the dictates of Act 847. According to the teachers, every attempt to get an ear to listen to them have fallen on deaf. Yes, if I can put it that way. Felix, I think straight to you. Has it come to your notice?
Well, I had snippets of it. I've tried to find out what is informing this, industrial action. First of all, let me begin by saying that industrial actions are not new. It's a tool that employees use to seek redress. And regrettably, it is not the first time. It will not be the last. But what we all hope for is a minimization of such actions so that there will be some normalcy on the labor front, because it doesn't help to have labor agitations. Sometimes the reasons are not too pressing to even warrant a strike action, even though the issues that may be tabled may be important nonetheless. I heard a spokesperson of the teachers say, or the lecturers, they are now a tertiary.
Yes.
They are tertiary, so let's say lecturers. Yeah. They were of the view that there should be a full implementation of the reforms in the colleges of education, the tertiarization of the college of education. When Honorable Bawumia was at the education ministry, I believe, work began on an act of parliament to, as it were, introduce some reforms to elevate what we used to call teachers, teacher training colleges to the status of tertiary institutions, so that they became known as colleges of education. Out of that, a number of reforms have been proposed or have been implemented, which has led to tremendous increases in enrollment figures. They continue to receive investment. As I speak to you, there are about 128 different projects at various stages in the various, about 38 colleges of education in Ghana. So more support and funding is going in there. But they are calling for recognition and proper placement.
Once they've been moved up, they want
recognition
to reflect
and proper
in their remuneration.
Exactly, proper placement on the pay structure. I don't think that this is an issue that should lead to an impasse. It is certainly possible to sit down, find out what the exact concerns are, and address them. And I do know that the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations will move swiftly on this matter to avert any, if you like, unpleasant outcome. But I would only appeal to them to show a bit more restraint and be accommodating towards the officials who will engage them to address. I don't anticipate that this will be a long-drawn industrial action, because government's disposition is to hear them and take the necessary steps to negotiate a settlement that will be beneficial to all parties. Yes.
I'm grateful. Obiama, the Education Ministry is suggesting that they're surprised because whatever was being done at every stage of the process, the teachers, their leaders have been involved up until now. That's according to Ms. Okudzato-Ablakwa.
Thank you. Well, if you read the story, the reports from the major papers, I don't agree with Felix that it's not long drawn. It's long drawn, except that it's probably the industrial action that you will want to curtail it. After all, it's a election year. You go and appease them, otherwise you will be in more trouble. But the reality is that they are saying that for 4 good years.
They have been battling this?
They've been battling this to the extent that they don't think that the government is even showing such seriousness, because not a single minister from the education sector, if I say a single minister, it means the minister and her deputies, have attended a single meeting that they've held on this matter.
But Mr. Okudzato-Ablakwa said in the Daily Graphic story that about 3 weeks ago, he personally chaired a meeting which was attended by leadership of SETAC, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and the National Council for Tertiary Education. That's 3 weeks ago.
For all the 4 years. Because if you read Times, that's their account of it. It's in the Times story. And I'm saying that you have told them that probably you couldn't be bothered. And they have to bear their teeth. And because it's elections, they think that for an election year, this is the time that they will be heard. Because if they are now lecturers in diploma awarding institutions, and you recognize that they are part of the tertiary level, how come for 4 years you are not listening to them? Or if you are listening to them, how come you haven't addressed their issues? And what is the roadmap towards addressing such issues? Do you have to wait to 3 months to elections when they say that this is a battle of our lives? If you don't address our situation, we are not. Meanwhile, it's only tomorrow that these training colleges have to go back. Why do we have to wait for such a situation? And then you turn around and say that it's nothing new or so simple, and the thing should be addressed in no time. Yes, let them.
The two parties can't sit down and talk? Even
it's not a matter of talking, right?
For
with
4
all
years.
due respect, right? For all due respect, if you were to be in that situation, probably you do worse things than what they are doing. Assuming you here, your status here, if for 4 years management has refused to listen to you, you have options anyway. You either quit and join another company, or management, knowing how useful you are, will address your problems. If for 4 years they haven't addressed it, it will always be an issue at a meeting with them. And sometimes I wonder why we allow such things to even fester. The reality is that I expect the ministry to come out with a better response than what is coming out now. The only last 3 weeks we met them, so they shouldn't say that we are not interested. Since 2009, I don't think it's good enough. And I will never endorse industrial action. It doesn't help anybody. Because it was only yesterday I asked them, they said, oh, the training colleges, they will come back to school tomorrow, Tuesday. Only to wake up this morning to hear
the
that.
GS has announced that basic schools, senior high schools, and all of them are supposed to.
Only to hear this morning that the teachers in such colleges of education have decided not to.
Luckily, I heard them say
so
that.
Are they just going back to school?
Yes, they would perform some of their duties. I heard them say, yes.
Some of their duties meaning that
orientation and all that, they will take students.
There will be orientation, and those in charge of the horse or whatever they call them, masters will perform their duty. But they say they won't teach. So are they just going to eat and drink and run around because the teacher said that for 4 years you haven't recognized them?
Well, we hope to be able to address this compass before them. So all that may not even be relevant.
Let's see. Then the time is of essence.
That is if you have put it in your budget.
But like the
if it's not in the budget,
no, but like the
the
deputy education minister indicated, it is not accurate that government has turned a blind eye. Only 3 weeks ago, he was sharing a meeting. Again, as for the budget, even if it is not in the budget, you can always establish a roadmap that allows you to be able to accommodate this. And I'm sure that if all parties sit down and iron out the differences.
You wanted to hear in the grapevine.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap up on this one. Muslims observe Eid al-Adha today, and we're told that they're joining Muslims across the globe to celebrate the day. We're told that they converge in open spaces and in big mosque this morning to observe prayers, and then they'll shout praises on Allah. Thereafter, we're told those who have the financial muscle will retire to their various homes to sacrifice animals, sheep, goats, and cows. And we're told also that those who are out of the country in Saudi Arabia would also do a part of the celebration there and come home to do that. Let's wrap up with this, our brothers' celebrations this morning. Felix, for you from the government, perhaps you have some words for them as they mark this day.
Oh, government extends its felicitations to them and congratulates them for coming this far and marking this important milestone. As you are aware, government considers matters relating to Islam very important. It is for that reason that a lot of investment has gone into making the holy pilgrimage of Mecca a more pleasant experience than before. I mean, you will recall that some time ago when Honorable Obi West Party was in power. I mean, the state in which the state. Oh yes, no, but these are relevant. These are relevant matters. I mean, the state in which our Muslim brethren were received and sent to Mecca was most deplorable.
But I'm sure you heard about the last.
Oh yeah,
the last days challenges.
Right, there's a difference between organizational mishaps,
right,
petty ones, and the wholesale deplorable conditions under which Hajj was undertaken in this country. There can be no dispute about the fact that there's been massive improvement. The conditions have gotten better. They go there in dignity. I mean, this year round, they were able to actually, some significant amount or number of pilgrims were able to go to Hajj straight from the Tamale International Airport. And it was a sight to behold. No, you see, these are not things that you can hide. Where credit is due, you give it. There has been a monumental improvement in the organization of Hajj. It is credit to government that you can't take away. Muslim leaders have been high praising government and indicating that we should even do more to enhance the experience. President Obama as president will continue to commit to do more to make Hajj a pleasant experience. Today, I know that there are a number of activities that government officials will participate fully in. My only concern, and I expressed it when we started the program, is that in recent times there have been some excesses in the celebrations. I'm aware that the National Chief Imam and other Muslim leaders and elders have consistently cautioned the youth to refrain from excessive celebrations. I mean, it's not unusual to find them on motorbikes, in vehicles, dangerously engaging in some antics and maneuvers on the road. And sometimes we record fatalities. Right. Indeed, if I'm not mistaken, during the celebration of Eid al-Fitr, there was some jamboree, some activity at a nightclub, which resulted in some unfortunate deaths. I would urge that the celebrations be moderated. And even as you go about this celebration of this joyous occasion, you need to bear in mind that there's life after this celebration. Ghana needs all the citizens to be in good health, to be able to develop at a much quicker pace than we are doing. And so I am all for the celebration. I join them to celebrate. I have Muslim friends who I've been interacting with, but I pray that we avoid all those excesses so that we don't record any unnecessary fatalities which can bring pain and anguish to everybody. But let me once again wish all Muslims a happy Eid al-Adha.
I'm grateful. Obi, from the largest opposition party, I think this is an opportunity for a lot more interaction with the Muslims.
Well, I don't know what you mean by a lot more interaction with the Muslims, but
this is
a very important day in our calendar, and indeed, we all wish them very well. I know in the course of the day, some of us will be visiting them. They've invited us to join them in the celebration. Even though we are no more Muslims, we look up to these days and then we participate fully in their activities. And for us in MPP, it's a normal thing because we have so many Muslims in our party. And somehow, by design, even though it's somehow by design, we've always had running mates from the Muslim denomination, to the extent that we had a vice president, Aliu Mahama, for 8 good years. And then we have had Dr.Bawumia going for the 3rd time. So it was a bit unfortunate when we heard from a whole minister who has not found it fit to retract that Muslims in MPP are not good Muslims. It was a very bad statement from a minister, and I was expecting even the president to reprimand him openly, not behind closed doors. But he just made a remark and left it at that. These things don't promote unity and cohesion in the country. People are free to join whatever political party they want. Don't incite religious groups against political parties simply because you think it will give you an advantage. There's no way it will give you any advantage, because we all need to live in peace, even for you to run government if you are elected to run government. And such statements should not be coming from even people down the ladder, much more those very high up who hold government and ministerial positions. So we wish them very well. We pray for very peaceful celebration today. And we pray for peace for the rest of the year and for years to come. And we know that they always sacrifice so much to pray and then to wish for peace and prosperity in the country. And we know Allah will listen and bless them.
We cannot go.
No. There's an ardent viewer of yours. I don't know whether you allow it. He's called Aziz Donla. Watch him.
Oh, okay.
He says if I don't wish him a happy Eid al-Adha,
he will get angry.
Pick a ball with me. So happy Eid al-Adha.
What is his name? Adams?
No, he's called Aziz Donla.
Aziz Donla. Okay. Wow, you're watching us from Aziz. We're grateful.
Happy Eid to all our Muslims.
But we can't go without also the chief imam. First of all, is urging Ghanaians to not to engage in acts that will destabilize the country. To the EC, he says they should be transparent, and then to the security agencies, he talks about making sure that they have measures to address whatever security challenges. A brief on that before we wrap up.
Well, I think that is a call in the right direction. In fact, the first topic that we discussed dovetails right into this. There's a need for all of us, whether political, religious, or traditional leaders, to act in ways that promote the peace. And let me commend the Chief Imam, Dr. Uthman Sharabutu, for his consistency in this regard. I mean, he's one leader who has remained consistent. And at regular intervals sends out these messages and has been actively involved in the promotion of peace. He has provided exemplary leadership to the Muslim and religious community, worthy of emulation. His call is in the right order. The security agencies have a role to play. The government has a role to play. But you see, all those efforts will come to naught if we as citizens do not complement those efforts by playing our part. It doesn't pay to engage in violent conduct. And we should appreciate the need for all of us to behave in ways that fosters the peace. Because it is only in peace that we can progress. Indeed, people talk about the gains we've made as a country over the last 20 years. One of the reasons underpinning it is the stability that we have enjoyed compared to other periods. That in the Fourth Republic, there's been stability. There's not been any truncation of the process. Yes, there have been pockets of incidents here, but largely, we have been a very peaceful country. It is within that atmosphere that you are able to focus resources towards addressing the basic needs of the people. If there is conflict, sometimes when there are conflicts in parts of this country, it costs huge money to be able to maintain the peace. Money that could have gone into drilling a borehole or constructing a road or a school or a market to enhance development in the community is spent feeding soldiers and lodging and paying for their boarding and lodging and other such logistics. So it is in our interest as a people to always foster the peace. So I support fully the call
chief
by the
imam.
National Chief Imam. Yes.
All right. Obiamo, so we should just listen to the chief imam and all other
yes,
religious
not only
leaders.
the chief imam, but even other religious leaders. Sometimes we tend to bastardize religious leaders for our own political good, but it doesn't speak well of us. 2, obviously we need a peaceful country if we have to make any progress. Just this morning, I heard that because of the crisis in Gabon, they're supposed to host the Cup of Nations, and the CAF may have to look at other countries, because it's only January. If they are not able to solve their major crisis by January, CAF will have to look elsewhere. Simply because then they will tell the whole world they are not ready. And because of the elections. In their case, very grievous allegations coming out, because the incumbent won by just around 6,000 votes. And the opposition is complaining that in his home region, he scored about 99.3%. If we are not able to solve this crisis, the whole parliament was stormed, and they bombed parliament, the police came in, started shooting, all because of elections. We need to learn from it. That is why the Electoral Commission is very critical. I think EC is critical in the sense that they need to inform and educate the public, even though the parties will play their part. EC should educate the public so that people will know that this is the law, this is how you apply it, this is the outcome. If we take things for granted, expecting everybody to know that this is what the law is, some of these things, okay, and you drag us back, no matter who wins the elections and who assumes the reign of government. But the government too should play its part. The onus is also on government to play its part, in the sense that the government should be fair in even using the resources at this stage of our elections, because they have all the resources in their hands. If they don't manage it well, the average person will think that, you're being unfair. For instance, you decide to share Maslock. Maslock is for all of us. Maslock is not for any party or any group. It's government money from office of the president. So if you hear in a community that, they've lined up only one party people to come for government money, Maslock, that's loans for the people to survive. The other person sitting there will say that, hey, does it mean that I should also fight for my party to come so that I will also get Maslock? Some of these things, you'll be surprised how they generate animosity and hatred within communities, and the least thing, it sparks some of these troubles. So we should know how to manage some of these things, especially during election. And it's 8 years for NDC. Okwaya.
Felix, do you agree to that?
That's all. Every president is allowed to have 8 years. So President Obama has done 4 years.
Okay.
He needs another 4 years to continue.
That's a counter argument.
Constitutional
Constitution.
So to the extent that the people of Ghana
have 8 years.
So the president has had 4 years.
Ghanaians are
very well. He's improved education, enhanced healthcare, improved water delivery, roads, transportation, telecom, housing, security, peace and stability, and what have you. So it is clear that the people of Ghana appreciate the work that is done.
Okay, this is a special eat. All right. Okay. Thank you. Those of you who watch out from particularly Aziz, we're grateful. And those of you who watch from other parts of the country, happy Eid to all of you out there. The whole day TV3 will be with you.